Hi, seventh graders. I wanted to make a video to help you review and prepare for our test on Thursday. This video you should be watching on Wednesday. It's your asynchronous work day. So hopefully you're watching it on Wednesday, October 14th, to prepare for your test on Thursday, October 15th. Remember, as we've been reading A Long Walk to Water, we've been thinking about culture, time, and place. We've been citing evidence and explaining what the evidence shows us, making inferences, okay? So remember, as we're going through, I'm going to be reading to you. As we're going through, remember these definitions we went over of culture. Culture is related to the beliefs and lifestyles of a particular group of people. So your culture can determine your language, your beliefs, your customs, attitudes, your food, your religion, your behavior, your rituals. Your culture can shape your identity in a lot of different ways. We talked about a lot of different examples of that in class last week. For example, my culture is Polish. I'm not super religious, but it's very typical for Polish people to be Catholic. So I grew up going to Catholic church with my grandparents. So being part of Polish culture has helped me appreciate my family and those experiences I had at church. Also, we're thinking about time, okay? When we're talking about time, we're not talking about the clock on the wall exactly. We are talking about the time period in which someone lives. So thinking of Salva's story, Salva's in the 1980s, okay, 1985, versus present day for us versus where Naya is. Naya is in 2008, okay? So different time periods. We want to be thinking about how do our different time periods affect us, okay? So I think in class we talked about how you guys use technology so easily. You're so good at technology. And, you know, if I went back in time, even just 50 years, if I went 50 years back and I handed someone an iPhone, they wouldn't even know where to start, right? So think of how time, the time period that you're born in, that you live in, affects who you are and your identity. And again, think of place. Place, we're talking about geographic location, where someone lives. So think about the weather, the climate. Do they have resources nearby? Resources are like water, food, supplies. For example, Naya does not have water very close to their house. They don't have running water in their house, so she has to walk very far every day to get water. Because of the place she lives in, she is becoming an even harder worker because she has to travel and walk to get just something as simple as water, okay? So let's go over some chapter summaries. Because at this point, we should have read chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not going to reread those for you, but I'll read through some chapter summaries, and then we can talk about it. So chapter 1 of A Long Walk to Water. Southern Sudan, Naya, in 2008. Naya, who is 11, is walking with a large container. She will walk half the morning. That's all we see for Naya in the first chapter. Then it says Southern Sudan, 1985. Salva, a Dinka boy, that's his culture. He's part of a tribe called Dinka. He's in school. He only attends school for part of the year because his family moves away during the dry season. So his family literally has to move from place to place. So think about how that would affect you. His father is considered successful in their village. Salva has 3 brothers and 2 sisters. His sisters are not allowed to attend school and instead learned how to keep house from their mother. So another cultural difference. In the United States, boys and girls go to school just the same, right? In Sudan, Southern Sudan, in 1985, where Salva lives, because of their culture, only boys go to school. Girls stay home and tend to the house. Before Salva was old enough to attend school, he would help care for the family's cattle with other young boys. It was a happy time for him. So while he's daydreaming, while he's sitting in school daydreaming, he hears gunfire and he's told by the teacher to run away from the village. There has been a war going on there for 2 years. Rebels from Southern Sudan have been fighting against the government. The government wanted everyone in Sudan to practice the religion Islam, but not everyone in Sudan wanted this religion. As Salva runs away from the school into the bush, he sees many people running for their lives. So we actually kind of see a culture clash here. These two cultures are warring with each other over religion, okay? And because Salva physically lives in that place that is affected by war, he is pushed out of his home. He has to flee his village. He's essentially becoming a refugee. So again, we're constantly thinking about culture, time, and place. How do these affect these characters? Eventually, we will talk about how they affect us as well, how culture, time, and place affect our own identity, right? Review of chapter 2. Chapter 2 starts off with Naya. She's in Southern Sudan in 2008. Remember, in the beginning of the chapters, you have those little place and year stamps. Okay, so it helps you keep track of who's where, because remember, 2 different timelines, 2 different characters that are years, decades apart, right? So, Southern Sudan 2008. Naya has to stop her walk to remove a large thorn from her foot. Southern Sudan 1985. Salva continued to run away all day and night. There were many people, including some from his village, but he couldn't find his family. So remember, he had to flee because of the fighting. The people walk until they reach a rebel camp. There, they're asked to sort themselves into 2 groups, men and women and children. Salva joins the men, but then they tell him, "You're not a man, go back with the children." The men are forced to go with the rebels, but the women and children leave. They all fall asleep in a barn, but when Salva wakes up, he realizes he's all alone and that they left him, okay? So again, cultural division between the men and the women. You see Salva has been pushed out of his place, pushed out of his home. He can't find his family. Again, unfortunately, they're in the same place, same physical country, right? Both of these timelines take place in Southern Sudan, but Salva is living there during a time period that there's a war going on, okay? There's another example of how that time period is affecting Salva and the place he lives in. Chapter 3 starts out with Naya again. She reaches the pond where many other people have also come to fill their containers with water. So you're gonna be thinking about where Naya lives. She does not have running water. She can't just go to the sink in her kitchen. She has to walk and walk and walk and get thorns in her feet and bake in the sun just to go fill her jug with water and bring it home, okay? So she fills the container, she places it on her head for the long walk back home. Then we go on to Southern Sudan 1985 for Salva's story. So Salva knows that he was left. They abandoned him because he was a child, and he figured they probably didn't want him slowing them down. He sees a woman outside the barn and recognizes that she is from his tribe because she has the Dinka scar pattern on her face. The woman feeds him and lets him stay in her barn. He can hear the fighting still going on. Shh, stop it. He can hear the fighting going on in the distance. After a few days, he wants to just stay around with this lady because she's nice and helping him. But she tells him that she's leaving to be closer to water, and she doesn't want him to go with her because it would make a more dangerous of a journey for her. He's very scared and upset. Suddenly more Dinkas arrive. And remember, Salva belongs to the Dinka tribe. That's his culture. He recognized that woman because of the ritual scars on her face. Okay, that was a tradition within that culture. All right. Different ways that cultures kind of identify themselves or set themselves apart and have different traditions and rituals. Chapter 4, Naya's story starts off for us. Naya gets back home to empty the water into their other jugs at home and to eat lunch. Now she has to return to the pond again, right? Really long day for this really young girl. She's only 11 years old. Her mother makes her bring her 5-year-old sister along with her so she can learn. So only 5 years old, and mom wants her to already start learning, hey, this is what we have to do. We have to go all this distance to get water, bring it back, go again, right? She wants her younger sister to get used to it. Naya makes that trip twice a day, every day, for 7 months out of the year. Southern Sudan, 1985, we're back at Salva's story. The woman arranges for Salva to join the group of Dinkas who are trying to stay away from the war. So the woman tells Salva, you know, you can't come with me, but let's see if you can go with these guys. I'll try to help you find a spot. That he goes with those Dinka guys The group walks for days with little rest or food. More people continue to join their group. He starts walking with another boy who is not Dinka, but Jurchol, whose name is Buksa. Buksa hears a noise and discovers a beehive with honey for the group to eat. Okay, so again, he found other guys from his own culture, his own tribe that he could fit in with and to walk with on this journey. I'm trying to think of other good examples of this. Because this is what you're going to be doing in the test. You're going to be actually reading the book, though. You won't be reading summaries. And you're going to pick out evidence that you think connects in some way to either culture, time, or place. All right? You'll do that a couple different times to prove that you have that skill of being able to cite evidence and make those connections, you know, making those inferences about what it means and what it shows us. Okay, chapter 5. This one is the one that the test is going to focus on. You're going to do a first read of chapter 5. Hopefully today, after this video ends, you should sit down and read chapter 5. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a heads up now of what is going to be happening in chapter 5, but then you need to read it on your own because it will be on the test tomorrow. It will be open book, so you'll be able to have the book in front of you and keep looking through it. But it's in your best interest to read chapter 5 today so you are prepared for the test tomorrow. So chapter 5, again, starts out with Naya. There's a big lake 3 days walk from Naya's village. Her family moves there during the dry season when the pond dries up. So those trips that Naya's been making every day are just to the pond to get water. But there's also a big lake a little bit further away. So now during the bad dry season, her family's just gonna straight up move to the bigger lake. Okay, so again, they're physically having to move, change their location, move to a different place just to survive because they need resources. They cannot live there all year because the different tribes fight over who owns the land. Naya is a Nuer, that's her tribe. Remember, Salva's a Dinka, and the Nuers fight with the Dinkas. So technically, Naya and Salva are in opposite tribes. Both groups must live there during the dry season, but they just try to not fight too much because they're all just struggling to survive. Even the lake starts to dry up during the dry season. Naya has to dig into the mud to find water. The water is very dirty and takes a long time to gather. Okay, and then Salva's storyline in chapter 5. Salva's group, remember they found that beehive so they could have honey for lunch. They all get stung by bees, but they don't even care. They're just happy and full from the honey, sweet, delicious honey. They're not even worried that they got stung. Then they have to continue walking. More people join their group. Salva makes friends with another boy named Mariel, who's also without his family. Mariel tells Salva that they are walking to Ethiopia. Salva is worried that the family will never find him, that his family will never find him, and then he hears someone calling his name. So chapter 5 ends on a little cliffhanger. So read chapter 5, be thinking, how does it connect to culture, time, and place? Because that's what you're going to have to do on your test tomorrow. All right, you're going to cite evidence of culture, time, or place from the story and talk about how it connects. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow.